As a breeder of Arabian horses, marketing is very important to one's success. Photos and video are a key element to success. Today I am joined with Darryl Larson, Stuart Vesty, and April Visel, and we are going to talk about photos and video and the photo and video industry. I remember when I first got into the horse business, I would wait every month for my monthly publication to arrive in the mail. I'd quickly thumb through to the back to the classified ads, look for that special horse, call up the owner, have a nice conversation, and then anxiously await 3-4 weeks for that box to arrive with that VHS tape in it. And
you're old.
The rest. I know that always shows my age. Of course now, with emailing videos and videos on websites, and the same with photos, how do you all feel about the way that the industry has changed, the goods and the bads, and all of that?
And you.
That was before my time.
Well, I think it makes the demand for work a lot quicker. When people used to be content with waiting 2 or 3 weeks for something, now what is it? I shoot a video at your place and 3 minutes later you want to know if it's ready.
I would say 4.
4. Okay.
4 to 5, but
no, but
nice.
I think that's what technology has done. Basically, it's put us on fast forward, and you know, sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it may compromise the quality when people rush you.
And I know that all 3 of you have worked together on special projects. What have the 3 of you enjoyed about working together and those special video or photo shoots that really are kind of lasting memories that you sit around with family and friends and talk about?
My first experience ever, was Silver Maple, and you were shooting and she was videoing.
I was videoing.
And I got to second shoot, and it was the best experience, and I got to see how loud Stuart is and how quiet she is.
So actually,
but they made miracles. That was my very first.
So the 3 of you worked
shoot.
on it together.
Yeah, my very first
That's cool.
experience was with the 3 of these guys.
I made her work for me.
Yeah.
And
Always
it worked
has.
out well. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's we get along. We are as good friends as we are super competitive at what we do. You know, we make each other do better. I think, you know, by knowing that April and Darryl are around me and they're busy and they're making magic. It makes me try harder. Makes me love what I do. And you know, and you can't do this. You can't just be, you know, you can't live on your last cover, you know, so you got to keep trying. And,
right.
And these lovely ladies make me try hard, so it's good. And we like each other's. I get off on what they do, you know. I mean, it inspires me and it makes me do better.
Yeah, but you set the bar. So
right.
Well,
yeah,
and
that's right.
I have to say that as a breeder, though, the 3 of you make me do better, because it's all about working together as a team as well. I mean, I can have the best horse in the world and you guys can be as talented as you can, but if we all don't come together and make that horse turn into what it really is.
And it's difficult to, I mean, we appreciate breeders that are conscientious of like producing the next great thing, because it's not, we don't do miracles. We only photograph what's in front of us, and when and we can't, you know, I mean, beautiful horses make our job simple, you know. And when you guys do that stuff, it makes us
I had a video photo session with Darryl a couple weeks ago, and what I loved is that Darryl brought, and I don't know if this is, I'm telling you one of your secrets, a cardboard box. And I got in the box, and this horse just went from, you know, I think it was her first time in the ring, and she just, if you remember Darryl, she just really, she was quite flat, and this was her second time being videoed, and the box just, whew, and it was, you know, trying new and different things, and, you know, coming together.
Well, and it's about that. It's about the, I mean, expression is what it's all about. You know, I mean, we just basically register expression, you know, and you know, lighting and all that kind of stuff is all good, and we have a little bit of control over that. But all of the things that we don't have control over, the camera itself, and,
Sure.
and what we see requires the box.
Right.
It requires that some stimulus outside, and there's so much going on a lot of times. That
And
people
how
don't
lucky
realize.
we are that we work with Arabian horses that are playful, inquisitive, and look so amazing when they do what they do.
Right on.
Right.
And I think one of the things that you said, David, about we do what we do and we help that horse come to life, and I think that's the way I approach it, is honoring the beauty of any horse that I work with. And I think it's
Right.
really important to represent them in the very best way.
Sure.
And the people in the box are crucial to our careers.
Right.
I mean, we didn't
Yeah.
have anybody, we couldn't even do
Yeah.
the job.
Sure.
Right.
And
Very
what
important.
about those special horses that you guys may have seen as babies or as yearlings that went on to greatness that you thought, wow, this is one that I really want to keep my eye on? Any of those that
Well,
stories?
I
or-
remember walking in to see Eden C as a late weanling, and he was still in the groom stall, because I like to go in and see them first, and thinking, oh my goodness, here's a good one.
That's my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Eden
He's
C?
my boyfriend, yes. He actually, a lot of things started my career, but the picture of him and Enzo together that nobody, including myself, thought we could get, and it just happened, and it was a gift that they stood near each other. From that moment on, he's been winning, and now he's here, and I'm.
This
sending
entire
them
interview
all.
is sponsored by Eden's.
Mm.
I know, it's totally, he is special. Huh?
No, yeah,
He is
he's a super
special.
good horse. I'm at a blank on some of the young ones that have turned into great ones. We've all had our experience with great ones for sure. There are a lot of horses that have been super difficult. You know they're good, and
Right.
they just don't necessarily want to be good for us sometimes,
Right.
you know. And then as they mature and they get their own personality, and it doesn't necessarily require the box because they're all that and they know it. That's when it works sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
And so
And they give it to you like
they just hand it to you. It's
I
nice.
remember, Stuart, when I lived in Michigan and you came to my farm one day to shoot, and I think you just returned from Rookers,
Yep.
and you were telling me how there was a horse. I don't know if you guys actually turned him loose and he ran in the water,
Oh, that was a bad deal, dude.
but that,
Yeah, we
But
did, yeah, that was yeah.
because of course
man.
I know Rookers have that large pond there
Right.
at their place, and I just remember that story, and it stuck. I mean, that was years and years ago,
Sure.
and it just stuck with me because I think you had told me that someone had to go out in a rowboat.
Well, okay, so this is the deal. So yeah, it's a beautiful pond. It's 100 and some acres, and it's wonderful. And so we turned Apollo Bay loose there, and there's it's just it's Grandma's backyard. And there's the water, and it's nice, and there's no fences, and so you get a few people around, and you use Grandma's house as a blocker, and you kind of keep them in that little area.
Right.
And it worked out real well for a few horses, super well, Little shake bag on either end, and you turn them back, and they trot with their tail up right in front of the water. It's fantastic. We turned this one horse, his barn name was Gene. We turned Gene loose, and he stood there, and he wasn't completely sure what we wanted of him. It shook a bag, and he just turned around and was like, I think this is the only way out. And so he walked into the water, and then he drifted off. And we're like, Gene. And this is like a 75-acre pond. It's
Right.
big, right? So he takes off, and he's swimming, and he's doing a good job. And then he turns into like nothing but an alligator. You see nostrils, and that's all.
That's
and it's
funny.
like, this is bad. So we're calling him, and he finally comes around, and he's coming back to shore, and we're like, come on, Gene, you can do it, Gene. And then he would just turn around and go back into the big water again,
Right.
and we were freaking. So somebody went over, and they had a little paddle boat, but the rudder was broken, so they paddled their asses off and just kind of spun in circles towards the horse, and finally got near him and kind of shoot him to the side. And when
That's
he went on the other side of the pond, he got out, and that's where the barn was. And he got out, he shook himself off, he trotted off to the barn with his tail up over his back, and slept for 4 days. Could not get that horse to stand up for like 4 days. We kept checking on him, he was fine, but tired,
Oh,
super
that's
duper
funny.
tired. And 10, 15 minutes in the water.
Did you get the shot?
while he was in the water.
There you
Nothing
go.
on land.
And what about you, April? Any of those great stories?
I haven't had any. I like those stories. I haven't had anything like where anybody went in the water or the ocean. A lot of the things that are really big have happened because they're like horses that I'm sort of idolizing. So more or less, I'm in moments where I'm realizing that I'm looking at a horse, or I'm having the ability for me to shoot a horse like that, and then somebody let me be in charge of like the lighting that I wanted,
Right.
or the situation that I wanted, and that kind of stuff. That's happened. It happened just recently with Justice. I did with Darryl. We did that.
Nice job there, by the way.
Yeah.
That was a wicked moment where everybody was screaming and just And El Nabila, they often were always pushing really hard for something new of him, and so they call him Grandpa because he's so mellow that we've now taken him out into the middle of herds of racing mares and backlight
And I've seen those photos. And
yeah,
they
we're
are
just
quite
it's
amazing.
really people who just let me do the both. Actually, for me, the biggest gift is any mare who really turns on a mare that might, like in the wild, be in the front of a herd, alerting everybody. Those kind of mares, I always find that's a gift. I like, they're doing it because they want to do it,
Right.
and that I love that kind of stuff. I always draw a blank on all the horses. There's a lot of them, but the most recent that was Justice. That was
I just
really
remembered
intense.
that story that Stuart had told us, because again, I was in shock, and it just, all these years, it stuck with me. What about you, Darryl?
Well, I do have a pond story that's similar to Stu's, but the pond I was shooting by had green slime all over it, so we didn't use it as a backdrop. But I used it as a fence line, I thought. But I stood in front of it and shot up along the hill, and the horse bolted and went right past me, right into the water.
Thinking it was ground.
Maybe, but the only thing that makes me not think that is that he leapt into the water, landed as a belly flop, and the lady was quite nervous and came screaming and forced him into the middle of the lake. And she finally backed off, and he just swam across, walked up the bank on the other side, turned back at us, snorted, blew at us, flagged his tail, and all the green moss came flying off, and
That's funny.
he trotted back to the barn. So that,
And
How
then,
often have halters broke?
yeah.
yeah,
and
true.
the horses don't know, and then they come back again
Right.
because
Yeah.
they think they're still held on. But
Yeah.
I've never had anybody run off and be gone.
And I guess one final thing, where do the three of you, where do you see the industry going in regards to, your photos, your videos, they truly are, like with you, Stuart, the photos that you do of the Polish mares, they are like works of art. How are the three of you going to continue to move forward on or not just move forward, but just up it again? Because I saw the photos that you did of Justice and the video of Justice, and it's magical. It's amazing. And
I think it's just moments, and I don't think a lot of the stuff you can plan, because there's you'll never run out of the moments. You just have to be ready for those. And a lot of the things that I do are not preconceived.
Right.
You just are there.
I think that's when I run into my problem with photo sessions and video sessions, is when I plan them all and say, this is how I want it to work and this is what I want to do, and then it normally goes the opposite way.
Yeah.
I'm pretty loose in that respect, because I don't try to structure stuff, and it's like, where do you want to shoot? And I'm like, bring the horse out, and it'll kind of, I know I want it to be over in this general vicinity because of the lighting and the backdrop and whatever, but for the most part, I don't get all wrapped up in the setup part of it, because you can't, they have to be themselves, and they have to be able to express themselves, and they'll do that when they feel comfortable. And
Right.
when you get too pent up with this and that,
Right.
then you just kind of like
And planning.
You mute the whole scene.
Sure.
And you said earlier it really has to be like the industry is used to emotions now.
Right.
They want to
Oh,
feel
absolutely.
emotion when they're looking at it, and I think that's the common denominator that has to be there. And then, like you say, you could light it a different way. If all those bits and pieces come together, you have no idea what you're going to end up with. So
And-
I think if you raise
Right.
the bar high,
Right, and
you never
I
know
think
what
that
you'll
the way, in days gone by, it was fantastic to see horses. There's always a reason for that structured body shot, and that
Sure.
and that just, you know, perfect head neck pose and those kind of things. They certainly have their purpose, and they will always be valuable. But these days it's more about grab their attention, give them a reason to want to turn back and look at that picture again.
Right.
Be interested in that horse, contact those people, and then request some of those other pictures that
Sure.
are always necessary and when we have to do. But it's just amazing when you can get just the emotion and the crazy good stuff that happens, and like the sex appeal. You know?
Oh, I agree.
And it just and Arabians do that. They do that for us all the time. You know.
Well, I really like, again, how the industry has changed, or the equipment that you all use, because I do love it when you're out photographing and you're constantly looking down. Ooh.
Well, that's
We're not-
and looking at the
no,
camera.
You're not supposed to do it. It's a bad habit, and the thing about it is it's good and it's bad, because when you're looking down,
Yeah.
sometimes something good's happening.
Yeah.
But it's not. You're just taking advantage of the technology. You can adjust some things in the camera
Sure.
that will make it
Right.
better. Because in the old days, I'd be like, you know, I'd leave the farm, I'd take their money, and I didn't know if I got anything.
Right.
I didn't know if my camera was working properly. I didn't know if everything was right on, you know,
Sure.
and I didn't know if my lab was going to process the film
Right.
correctly, or if they were going to leave it in the soup too long.
Now
and
you're
you know.
showing your age. Film?
Yeah, right on.
What's
Okay,
film?
back
When
up.
you'd send it,
Weird.
remember those little drive-throughs where you take your film and
Yeah,
drop?
yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I want to thank the three of you. Not that I speak for all Arabian horse breeders and owners, but I want to compliment the three of you. I really do think that the three of you have set a bar for other people in our industry,
Thank you.
other photographers, videographers, and I know for me, your photos are emotional, and they do make me, as a breeder, love what I do. So I thank you, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you as
And
well.
Thank you.